He didn't go cheap at all with you. He didn't give you a salvation that puts up with cancer. He didn't give you a salvation that puts up with night terrors. He didn't give you a salvation that keeps you in fear and won't allow you to talk to a stranger. He didn't give you a salvation that won't put you before kings, that won't put you before literal billionaires. He gave you his son. Anyway, the next day was Friday, and I'm at Friday night service, and I see a vision of a car in worship, and I get up on stage to close worship, and I'm like, God's giving away cars right now. And I just released it, and I was like, anyway, someone within 5 minutes gets a car in the meeting. Like that, they stand up and go, I just got a text, I got a car. And I'm like, come on, Jesus, someone just got a car. The next day, a close friend of ours texts and says, we were just given a car. The next day, another close friend of us texts us and says, we were just given a car. The next day, it happened 5 days to 6 close friends, and we celebrated. We celebrated. We were like, yes! The kingdom is advancing. Do we still want a Honda Pilot from heaven? You're darn right we do. And so this is breaking out. This is just going crazy. And then it's our 10-year wedding anniversary. And I go into this worship room, and Taff is actually leading worship like an angel. And I come in and I lie down the back, and I'm having a super sulky moment. Who's ever sulked? Who's ever said, woe is me? And I lie down at the back. I'm like, God, I'm in this country, America, and I don't have any money. And it's my wife's 10-year anniversary. She's my bride. I love her to death. Like, I just want her to have the best present, but I can't give her anything. And immediately the Lord shows me myself as the bride of Christ again. And I see myself as a girl, which was super. I was actually getting used to it by then. But early on, he was like, really, Jesus? Is this biblical? Of course it's biblical. The bride of Christ. And he said to me, Dave, if you're my bride and you want to give good gifts to your bride, how much more do you think I want to give to you so you can give to your bride? And I was like, what the? Anyway, I just started to cry, and I get up and I walk out of the room, and my phone goes off straight away. And it's Andy Mason from Heaven in Business goes, Dave, we want to buy 200 of your testimony books. We just want to bless you guys. And I'm like, Andy, chill out, just buy them from Bethel. I don't get anything from them anyway. Like, just buy them. No, we want to give you some money. He goes, how much do you want? I go, look, I seriously don't want anything. And then he's like, no, we're going to do it. I go, all right, whatever. He goes, look, we'll give you $200 profit, whatever, for this. And I'm like, all right. And I leave, and I'm like, that must have been God's good gift for my bride. Anyway, I get home, and a couple of days later, there's a knock on the door. And I open the door, and someone comes in, and they say, look, I can't stay long, but here's a letter for you. And I open the letter, and in the letter is a check for $5,000 for a car for Taff. And I'm like, what? This is awesome. So I'm like super pumped. I'm like, we're going for a drive. I'm going to tell Taff a lie and tell her I'm at Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry, but I'm going to ask my boss for a day off. I'm going to take it, like hook it down to a cheap car somewhere down south. Sure enough, this guy says, yeah, come, I've got, and it was a great deal on a second-hand Honda Pilot. I get in, I drive down the road with another mate, and we're 4 hours down the road, and this guy is not returning my calls. And I'm like, dang it, what's going on? So we pull off into this town, and I said, we need to pray. Like, let's ask the Lord what's going on here. So we asked the Lord, and I saw a picture of a train leaving that city and going back to Bethel, back to Redding. I'm like, I think we just got to go home. So we drove past Chico, which is a little town, test drove another second-hand Honda Pilot. And then, and as I'm looking at this thing, I'm like, this is torn up. There's scratches everywhere. There's holes in the leather. This doesn't feel like a gift from the King of Kings to my wife. We have to be so careful, guys. We have to be careful what we sing. We have to be careful what we do with our mouths. when we sing, only you are worthy, only you are holy, my God has given me his son and wrapped me as his bride in his son. Like I have been given a $1 billion outfit. No expenses held back, the Bible says. Didn't spare his own son, and he's put Christ onto me and made me one with Christ. And then he says, you're holy, Dave Harvey. You are righteous, Dave Harvey. You are worth more than a second-hand muddy boots outfit. How do you think I would feel if I spent $100,000 on an outfit for Taff? Spent all my money. If I had 100 grand. Gave it to her and she's like, oh my gosh. But Dave, only you are good enough to wear an outfit like this. And she just puts on her old jeans that have got holes in them, doesn't put on her shoes, and she leaves the dress hanging up there. The righteousness of God is priceless. I don't think you understand this. He didn't come to make someone that was less than him. He didn't die on a cross to make someone that would grovel. He came to lift us and seat us into heaven. We're not reestablishing the garden. We've been seated in heaven. We've been seated in the throne of Christ. Man, I can feel a bit of kickback on that. That's okay. Don't get me wrong. Christ, without being grafted into Christ, we are dirty boots, dirty clothes. But the gift of righteousness is ridiculous. You saw it up here with Todd. You've seen it with Randy. You've seen it with William. You saw it with Paul. You saw it with all of our speakers here. You see the bright light here, the bright light of righteousness. When someone believes, when someone's had their muddy boot conscience taken off, you guys were like flies around one of those blue lights. Oh, the light. And that's what you're called to be. You're called to wear a $1 billion outfit and walk into your business and for your friends to go, what is different about you? For you to go to business and community events with your family and your family is wearing $1 billion outfits and for them to go, what is it about your family? You're meant to look different. You're meant to be extravagant. You're meant to be beautiful. Some people believe me. I'm getting off track. Jesus said this. He said, be imitators of God as dearly what? Dearly beloved children, Ephesians 5:1. Be imitators of God as dearly beloved children. And then he says in John 5:44, Jesus goes to the church people and he goes, you're so good at receiving praise from one another that you've failed to receive the praise that comes from your Father in heaven. He didn't come to give you a second-hand car. He came to give you the best. He came to give you his son. He came to give you Christ. Two other times that word beloved is used. It's spoken over Jesus when he's baptized. This is my beloved son in whom I love. He comes up out of the water. The Bible says the heavens were torn and boom, the Holy Ghost comes on him. This is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. And then on the Mount of Transfiguration, you can work with me a little bit there. This is my beloved son, a massive show. I'm so pleased in you. both of those times, heaven was opened. Do you know an open heaven is for every bride who believes that they are clothed? An open heaven is for every child that believes they are clothed in the power of Christ. For every mom, for every dad, for every father, for every grandfather, grandmother. Everyone now is a bride. Everyone say, I'm good looking. You guys are better than good looking. You're hot. He wants you so much. He wants you. He wants you. It's not about the miracles. It's not about the big church. It's you. He wants you. He wants to know you. So we got this second-hand car. We drive back to Reading. And I'm like, Lord, what is going on? That was a mess. Taff finds out that I lied to her. Dang it. I'm in trouble. No, not really. I have to tell her later about the gift. She's shocked. Then I'm in worship Friday night. So that was Thursday. This is a week after all this happened. Friday night, and I'm in worship, and I see my Subaru wheel spinning around, and an office light appears and shines on it. God speaks to me in random ways. Don't worry about it. And he says, I'm upgrading cars right now. So I get up on stage, and again, I'm like, God is upgrading cars. Now I spin it into I'm like, God, I think this is about ministries. You're upgrading ministries. So I do that thing, as a good son does, has a go. And I hop down, and I'm walking to my car that night. It's like 10:30, and someone taps me on the shoulder. And they said, hey, during worship, the Lord told us to give you this. And it's for a blue Honda Pilot. And they gave us a check. I think it was for $12,000. And I'm like, wow. So my wife and I are in this moment. She sees the money, and it's right in that thing. Do we get a brand new one and take out a little bit of a loan, which we never, ever wanted to get a new car. Everyone knows that's not a smart business decision. Man, Jesus is so good. We're praying about this, and Taff's driving, and she's driving to work one day, and the young girl who was living with our family at that time had a cancerous tumor. So she's just praying for her as she's dropped the kids off. She pulls out of the car, out of the school, and a flock of birds come across the car. Now the Lord has spoken to my family. Ever since we came to America, we took massive steps of faith. The Lord provided crazy. God asked us to give away pretty much all of our money. But then he provided over the next 3.5 years, 3 times what we gave away. And every time a miracle would happen, flock of birds would go across the car. Don't know why. Jesus said, look at the birds. Look at them. Don't worry about your life. Check out those guys. Flock of birds goes across her car, and she's taken back to a memory 10 years earlier. We're in a youth group in Australia, and this pastor starts getting crazy prophetic in this little meeting of about 50 kids. And he says to Taff, stand up on your chair. And so Taff stands up on a chair. Can you be Taff? Can you stand up on your chair? Yep, stand up. Yep, God might even give you a car out of this. This could be fun. And he just says, God's anointed you. God's given you power to minister to young people. And then he says, and it's okay to buy a car and the color, a brand new car, and the color is blue. Now at that time, we had no prophetic culture. We were just like, we had an awesome little Mazda, and we sold it, and we're looking for a blue car. We're like, God, we're trying to be obedient. What's happening? We didn't know that word was for 10 years later for my wife. You know, he gave her a gift that he planned for a long time ago. Do you know, I couldn't set that up. I'm not that good at keeping secrets. I'm awful at it. We take a step of faith. We're like, it's okay to buy a new car. We get a car. We book in a deal with a car that was like $7,000 off brand new price, which pretty much was almost what we had. We go in and our Honda Pilot is parked in front of a poster which says, supernatural sales event. And I'm like, okay, of course. Whatever, everything's prophetic. And so we go in and we're like, whoa. And the guy's name who's selling us the car is named Solomon. And my wife had just been reading scriptures about how Solomon receives these gifts from the queen and blah, blah, blah. No, whatever. He gives gifts, I can't remember. And anyway, and then we go to do the little bit of financing, and the woman behind the financing, she says, where do you work? I go, I'm at a church called Bethel. She goes, can you give me a word from God? And I'm going, what? Okay, so I gave her a word. I was like, this is the weirdest sale of a new car I've ever done. I told you all that to tell you this. Oh man, he didn't go cheap with you. No, he didn't go cheap at all with you. He didn't give you a salvation that puts up with a sore back. He didn't give you a salvation that puts up with cancer. He didn't give you a salvation that puts up with night terrors. He didn't give you a salvation that keeps you in fear and won't allow you to talk to a stranger. He didn't give you a salvation that won't put you before kings, that won't put you before literal billionaires. He gave you his son. He gave me his son. He gave me his bride. I'm fully clothed. I'm fully righteous in Jesus.